Well, good Sabbath, good Sabbath, good Sabbath to you all. This is Bill Bullock, and I am praying that you are preparing your hearts and your minds for the upcoming special holy day of Yom Kippur. That in the meantime, as you've enjoyed the changes in the weather that have been happening, not necessarily hurricanes, but everything else that's been happening, cooling down in the northern hemisphere, I presume warming up in the southern hemisphere, that your heart is alive, your ears are open, your spirit is attuned to what the creator of the universe is saying to his creation on the macro level, but also what he is saying to you, what he is saying to me, what he is saying to people who will listen, to anyone who will listen on the micro level. That's you and that's me. We are coming to you a little bit earlier than Shabbat. We did this last week. We're going to try to keep it up. We have in mind, of course, our dear friends in the Far East as we know it. The Far East as we know it includes Australia and New Zealand, Auckland, the folks in South Africa, the Philippines, Malaysia, and then, of course, all the way back into Israel. And Spain and France and Europe, all through Europe, especially my friends in the British Isles. Thank you for joining and tuning in, and all the Americas, for North America, for Canada, my friends in Canada. Bless you, and for those in the United States and the other areas of North America, also South America and Central America who may tune in. Thank you so much for giving me this privilege of being able to speak to your lives, to hopefully radiate some of the beauty and the majesty of the creator of the universe. As I say this with trembling, with fear, radiate some of his majesty through the words that he has given me to speak about what's coming up next. Not just Yom Kippur, but the preparations for Yom Kippur. That comes through our studies of Parsha Vayalech, the 52nd Parsha of Torah. It consists of Deuteronomy chapter 31, all of the chapter, verses 1 through 30. We have a very relatively short passage to speak of, but oh, the substance, and oh, how it is strategically designed to prepare us for Yom Kippur. Without Vayalech, we have no real substance to Yom Kippur. With Vayalech, we can be prepared. Because you see, Vayalech is the Parsha of embracing our mortality. The Parsha of embracing our mortality. The fact that we have an expiration date, that we will not, at least in this physical body that you see before you, in the tent, the tabernacle of this body, we will not live forever. Instead, there is an expiration date, there is a final day of accountability, and then, of course, we're not saying there's no afterlife. There is indeed eternal life that has already begun, but that's a spiritual existence that will have a physical manifestation. It won't look exactly like these bodies that we do. So the idea of embracing our mortality, what perfect timing just before Yom Kippur, when we rehearse the day of our death and our appearance before the judgment seat of our King. We will learn that he is doing this, giving us this rehearsal every year, so that we can be better prepared for the final, true, ultimate accountability, the death and resurrection and going before his throne. When that takes place, we will need to have made some adjustments on according to our annual briefings that we have, our annual rehearsals that we do. So in this parsha, we learn kind of some of the things that are going to be important in regard to our final appearance, but also to each annual appearance. And so this is the parsha of embracing our mortality, not overreacting to it, not panicking because of it. It is part of the creation cycle that these bodies that we are given to dwell in will expire. The parsha of embracing mortality and preparing against that day. What would we need to do if we knew we were going to die? If we learned that this coming Yom Kippur would be our last day upon the earth, or even before that, before the Yom Kippur date, we were going to expire. What could we do if we were told the date of our death, the date of our approaching change in circumstance, passing away from the veil of what we know as human mortal life into the afterlife. What will we do? How would we live if we knew we were dying? I think there's been country songs written about that in the past, but let's just not talk about that. Let's talk about in the Spirit, in the realm of covenant accountability. What would we do if we knew this was our last day upon the earth or thereabouts? So this is the part of accountability, our annual accountability that we do each Yom Kippur, and the ultimate accountability that we rehearse for each year. For what? What are we being held accountable for? Well, let's first of all understand that we have been given the breath of life. We have been given, first of all, the breath of physical, biological life, the nephesh. We have, like animals, like all animals, we have been given a season of time to breathe in air. That's just physical air. But we have also, in the covenant and in our relationship with Messiah, we have also been given something else, the neshama. We have been given the divine breath, not just of the earth's air, atmosphere, but of the very persona, the very image of the Holy One himself. When he breathed into Adam, he offered to all of us that same level of immersion into his own being. We have divine presence within us through this breath. We're accountable for that. We have it on lease, as it were, or under terms and conditions, with a period of accountability. These bodies that we have will be held accountable. Our souls and spirits will be held accountable. So life breath is a precious. What have you done with the precious breath of life? And even more important, since you have had an awakening of your neshama, of your God-breathed spirit that is in unity with the creator of the universe, what have you done with it? How have you interacted with the world? Beyond the idea of physical life breath and spiritual life breath in the neshama, we are also subject to accountability on Yom Kippur as a rehearsal and ultimately for the precious gift of using these lips, this tongue, these vocal cords to utter speech. We alone, the human species alone, out of all the creatures, can form intelligible, audible words that are understood by other people, other of our own species, and even the animals can understand to some degree what we speak. This gift of speech sets us apart from all the other creatures of the earth. What have you done with the gift of speech? We are held accountable. Yeshua, Messiah, told us that we would be, man would be held accountable for every idle word. We'll give account for every idle word, every word that was not according to the direction of the Creator himself. So precious gift of life, precious gift of neshama, precious gift of speech. What have we done with that? That will be our accountability factor. In addition, we have been given an advanced level, hopefully, at least when it started, and before the fall, we had a tremendous capacity for mental, intellectual storage of information and processing of information. Since the fall, human beings think they're smarter than they are, but nevertheless, as opposed to we have much capacity for thought, for rationalization, for processing and dealing with information. Well, what have you done with that? Or what have you chosen to let dictate your thoughts, your opinions, your ideas? Is it culture? To what extent have you let the media or the religion or philosophy or science do that to you? What have you done with the precious gift, the capacity of thought? And then each of us is given, and we are accountable for, both annually on this rehearsal basis and also eventually on what he gave us as far as opportunities to impact our families, our husbands, wives, if we have spouses, our beloved children, our parents. What have we done with the assigned opportunities of impact on our family members, upon our community as well, upon our generations, and upon our bloodlines, and upon every square meter of terra firma earth that we touch? What have we done with these assigned opportunities of impact? Dear one, we will be held accountable. Are you ready to be held accountable? Are you ready to rehearse? What have you done in the last year? Let's use the Rosh Hashanah or the Yom Teruah to Yom Kippur language. In the last year, what have you done with the precious gifts that we've talked about? Well, We are now called to live like we were dying. The example we're getting given in Parsha Vayalech is Moshe. This is all given to us on the final day of Moshe's mortal life. And in the process of this Parsha, the creator of the universe himself will once again appear to the one he appeared to at the burning bush for the first time 40 years ago. And he will say to him, this will be the approaching of your death. Today, your death will approach and get to you. So now Moshe knows he's about to die. We have this pattern, therefore, for Yom Kippur. We are going to take Moshe's position, and we have X number of days to prepare ourselves against that day. Well, what should we do? Now, Moshe is going to give us some examples. He is going to teach us about passing the covenant baton, passing the roles that he has served down to people who will take them and use them appropriately, and be hopefully Yehoshua, who is his chosen assistant, chosen by the Holy One and by Moshe. Hopefully he will be a good steward of what Moshe is going to give. But the first thing we need to think about in our living like we're dying day is passing on the covenant baton. How are you prepared to pass on the giftings, the callings, the potentials that was in you to someone else, and stir that in them and enable them to be a good steward? Second thing, beyond the passing of the covenant baton, he's going to focus on two things. He's going to speak on declaration and reading aloud, orally speaking the Torah of the Holy One. How much of your speech is a recitation of the Holy One's beautiful Torah? How much is actually reproducing the spirit and the letter of the Torah in people's lives? This will be a factor of Moshe. Moshe is going to spend his entire time here focusing on these issues. Right? And so then the third issue is going to be writing. He's not just going to speak and declare, and there will be actually a mitzvah. And one of the last two mitzvahs of Torah is going to be hakahel, that we are to gather everyone together in the 7th year of the Shemitah, as it concludes with the festival of Sukkot. And during that period of time, the king is going to call the priest, and there to every 7 years read the entire Torah from Genesis all the way through Deuteronomy, we believe, all the way through. Out loud to every person standing and every foreigner in the country, and this is to renew the covenant. Well, we see that we don't have a temple, we don't have Jerusalem. How will we do something like that? Moshe didn't have a lot of that either. How will we incorporate this? Well, we'll see how that's where the Torah cycle came from in the first place. And the idea spoken in Acts 15 of the fact that Moshe is proclaimed in synagogues every Sabbath. We see, because that's going to be how we try to fulfill something that can't be literally completely fulfilled, because there's now no temple and no king, no Messiah king yet in serving, sitting enthroned in Jerusalem. So the issue of reading and proclaiming. The next thing is writing. Moshe is going to teach us that we need to write certain things down, to leave a written legacy. His written legacy will be two things. It will be the Torah in general, and also a specific covenant song, a song of the ages, a song that it's poetic, it's prophetic, it is beautiful, it awakens the soul and the spirit, it creates awe and reverence, a little bit of trepidation, maybe a lot of trepidation. But what it does is an anthem of the kingdom, and it tells the story of the people of the Holy One, and allows us to fit in our place, to see our place. So teaching Israel to sing, because we've written the covenant song, and then we'll sing it in their ears. That's Moshe's way of finishing up. Every year this time, there are 3 seasonal texts that we read that go along with this year. And around the time of Yom Teruah, we read from and study and meditate on the book of Job. Along with the time of Yom Kippur, which is coming up, we read the book of Jonah. And then during the Feast of Sukkot, we read and study and meditate on the book of Ecclesiastes, Kohelet in Hebrew. Now, these are not what most people would think of as the most joyous books. And this is supposed to be the season of our joy. But these are books that they tell you about the mortality of man. They tell you that man can't control the universe, that what the things that human beings' flesh, our physical tabernacles and bodies hunger and lust after are not the kinds of things that will actually stir up the covenant purposes and bring joy. So it's like to the flesh, these books are problematic. They are troublesome. They hurt us. But to the spirit, they say there is so much more to life. Job knew it. Jonah knew it. Kohelet finally figured it out at the end. Ecclesiastes, Solomon figured it out at the end, that there is a higher purpose than pleasing our flesh or getting morality or justice in our mind, thinking we've done all those things. So we are this season, and that's where we are. Vayalech, the basic issues that are going to be talked about, first of all, is Moshe wants us, as he leaves, he's getting prepared for his own death, he wants us to be inspired. So he'll say things, mostly to Joshua, be strong, be bold, don't be afraid, lo tira, don't be afraid. As we enter into this season, as we enter into the idea of our mortality, first thing he wants us to know is you don't have to be afraid. This is not to fear. This is something that is within the Holy One's control. He will do all things well. He will bring about good in all things. Trust him. Be strong. Be bold. Have faith. And have no fear. Be inspired. Second thing is going to be do treasure and teach your children and those with you, those that you know, teach everyone you know to treasure. Model treasuring the revelation that's found within the Torah scrolls, and then teach them to have them catch it from you. Catch the passion for the Torah scrolls, not for judging people according to the Torah scrolls, for incorporating the things of the Torah into your own life in a way that makes meaningful change in your world. So the issue of first being inspired and not being afraid, be strong, be bold. Then treasure, learning to treasure and model and infect other people with this passion to treasure the revelation that's in the Torah scrolls. And the third thing is learning to sing the Holy One's song. Sing a song that's bigger than what you want in your flesh. Sing a song that's better than the silly love songs that Paul McCartney would write about. Sing a song that's got depth to it, that has spirit to it, that has a long-term perspective to it. And we're going to see an example of that in Moshe's song in 32 and 33, chapters 32 and 33 of Deuteronomy. It comes up next week. So be inspired, be not afraid. Treasure the revelation in the scrolls and teach other people to treasure it too, and model how the passion and the joy and delight in it. And then sing the Holy One's song, get in tune, and don't be limited by what you feel with your emotions, your flesh, or your desires. All right, let's move a little further. I want to talk to you about the final God encounter, the final encounter between man and his Creator in the Torah. The fifth book now that we're getting close to the end of, we've had so many encounters between the Creator of the universe and, well, Moshe lately, but before that we had Abraham and Yitzhak and Yaakov and Noah and of course with Enoch as most people know him, even with Cain, with Adam. We see there are so many divine encounters. Well, we come to the last one of the Torah, you could imagine. And in the last encounter, which is Deuteronomy 31, 14 through 21, the Creator is going to have two main things that he's going to say. And one of them is addressed to Moshe, but I think we can hear it in ourselves. And the address to Moshe, the first thing of substance he says to Moshe is, Ken karvu yameka lamut. The day of your death is upon you, is coming upon you. That's Deuteronomy 31:14. This whole idea of rehearsing death, of preparing against that day, of facing accountability of our mortality, and therefore hen karvu yameka lamut is a message to every human being, and especially to the people of the covenant as we prepare for Yom Kippur. The second thing is to kitvu et hashira hazot, to write, to inscribe the words of this song 31:19. These are the most important instructions that come with this God encounter. And then a very fascinating statement is going to be made in this God encounter, one that I hope you understand. There's going to be many things said in this God encounter. The Creator of the universe is going to speak for a while, a few verses. And he's going to say there's some things, bad things are going to happen, and Bnei Israel is not going to be completely faithful. Matter of fact, they're going to be many times unfaithful. And there's this wonderful saying that he kind of slips into the middle of it in verse 29, I believe it is. And it says, "Vayadat et yitzru," I know. In advance, at the present time, before any of this stuff that I'm telling you about is going to happens, I know Yitzru. I know the seed from which all this comes. There's a famous saying that is made famous in some of the circles that I'm in. I knew what I was getting into. The Holy One knew what he was getting into when he called us. He understood, and he will even use. It's unfathomable to us. And in the short term, it doesn't make any sense to our fallen human minds. But he has such vision and such wisdom that he will actually even use our failures, our mistakes, our waywardness as individuals and as a covenant people. That does not excuse us. That does not mean that we should not strive to be the best we can be and do the things according to his Torah that he has instructed us to do. But what it means is that you can't mess this plan up, and he will not hate you. He already knew before he called you every mistake you will ever make, every time you turned and got distracted by something in the world, every time you didn't use your gift of speech or your gift of thought in accordance with kingdom ways, but actually turned him to the opposite way and became sort of a traitor to the kingdom. He knew it before you ever did it. He knew it. He called you anyway. He loved you anyway. He called you his own. He calls you his own. He planned your life and strategized and gave you the gifts of breath and of thought and of influence anyway, knowing that he could fix whatever you messed up. That's good. Vayadat et yitzru. He knows your seed form, and he knows what comes from your seed form. He knows your yetzer. He knows your inclinations. He knows where you'll go whenever you don't have the Torah as your compass, as your North Star, and you're using something else. He knows you'll stray, you'll wander. It will be ugly for a while, but he will even turn that to good. Now, if you know that, you understand his anger is not an anger like humans have. His wrath is going to be spoken of in these passages. His wrath is not like a human being's wrath. He just gets mad and loses it. No, not at all. He just understands now he needs to act to begin to heal, to begin to fix. And so his wrath is not like the human wrath that we could ever imagine. His wrath is redemptive in nature, redemptive in manner, redemptive in effect. And then we have, as I said, there's two basic mitzvot, or instructions for living, that he concludes the Torah with. One will be the hakahal, the gathering and reading of the Torah in its fullness, in its completeness. Now, that's every 7 years, the Feast of Sukkot, after the Shemitah, the year of freedom, the year of rest. Now, that being said, we can't do those things anymore. So the issue is, if you can't do something, do you just give it up and forget it, say it's not relevant to me anymore? And obviously you can't go to Jerusalem. We can't go to the temple. We don't have a king that's going to read this to us from his personal scroll. We don't have Messiah reigning in the earth yet. Now the question is, do you just give up and quit and say, well, that would be real great in the Messianic kingdom, or you get as close to it as you can because it has the breath and the life force of the Holy One upon it? Well, the answer is the latter. And that's why the sages years ago determined to have the Torah read every week in the gathering places of the Jewish people. Someone has to keep the dream alive, where everybody who's present can hear the words of the Torah read. That is the whole idea. As referenced in Acts 15:21, this is why you didn't have to give the entire Torah instructions to a convert from the Gentile world. Give them these 4 or 5 things to do that go way beyond believing and way beyond baptism. And you see how they begin to have curiosity and go to hear the reading. It's important to understand that we go through the entire Torah and have it read so everyone can read it during the year. So that's kahakahal. We have now using a different device to do that. One day Messiah will reign. One day Yeshua will have his Torah scroll. He'll pull it out, and he'll call all nations together on the Feast of Sukkot. This is on the earth during the millennial reign, and he will read every seventh year. He will read from the Torah, and all people will hear his voice. Children, adults, people of all nations, people of all genders, people of all nationalities will come, and they will tremble at the beautiful words read by the Messiah. That's the Hakahal. Now, the second one is sing this song. Write down and then sing this song and let it be a witness, a ballad, an anthem. Let it be, this whole idea of Torah is like a song. But within this greater song is the actual song of Moshe, 31, 32, chapters of Deuteronomy. We'll see how these things are part of his preparing against that day. All right, I want to kind of move on to our call to worship, and then we'll conclude with a few discussions about some of these verses. Our call to worship, would you join me if you would, and sing the words if you know them. If not, you can just listen. And hopefully the Hebrew that I sing will awaken your neshama, your spirit, and prepare you against that day. Baruch hu Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bakar Banu Mikol Ha'amin V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Open our eyes now, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah. For we are but strangers in the earth, so do not hide your commandments from us. Let's start with our context. The context is a very interesting thing. At the end of Parsha Nitzavim, Deuteronomy 30, verses 19 through 20, the last things before we get to Parsha Vayalech, we read Moshe is calling the heavens and the earth. He said, I call the heavens and the earth as witnesses today against you, that I have set before you, Moshe, getting prepared for his day of death, I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore, choose life, that both you and your seed may live. I hope you hear the passion of this. This is his last gasp of the prayer, that all of those people who read or study or hear this message forever and ever, and it's supposed to be spoken forever and ever into the millennial kingdom, will choose life, will hear these words and choose life. Choose life that both you and your seed may live, that you may love the Holy One your God. Here's what living is to him. That you may love the Holy One your God, in that you may shema his voice, treasure, tune into, cherish, and listen to his voice and respond to it. And that you may cling to him, become one with him. Devakut, may devakut take place, a clinging, a bonding between you. For he is your life, Moshe said, and he is the length of your days. And so you can dwell in the land that the Holy One swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and Yaakov, to give them. That's how it ended last week. What passion, what an amazing moment. The critical crescendo of Torah. And in times like the present, it is imperative for the people of the covenant to heed those words, to choose life, to know and voluntarily choose to walk in the peaceful paths of the Torah. But we should also have in the forefront of our minds at all times and faithfully teach our children the principled and persevering resistance stories that Moshe illustrates to us. We should tie always into the story of Yosef, the story of Abraham, of Yitzhak and Yaakov. Now, to him who overcomes. In these days, we are called to choose life. Choose the way of those who have chosen life. Choose the way of Yosef, not the way of an angry, bitter one who is victimized or feels victimized by the world. Choose to do good, to receive the tov, the fountains of living that are even in the midst of all the troubles of life. Choose to find and draw strength from and draw water from the wells of good that are found hidden sometimes amongst all the traumas of life. And if you don't, then there will be bad things take place to you. Now, and to your family, because you are responsible, you are accountable for releasing at least all that you've been given. So now, with that being said, let's look at the opening words of Vayalech, of this parsha. Moshe is going to bid us farewell, knowing that he is about to die. Deuteronomy 31, verses 1 through 2. Here in the Hebrew, I'll read it. I'll kind of translate it as best I can into the English. It starts with this phrase, Vayalech Moshe. Vayalech Moshe. And the English would be something like, and Moshe walked. He went out walking. He went out, I think some people say, but it has the idea of foot travel, of heel to toe, of touching the earth. And there is a step-by-step nature. He went out intentionally, with intentionality, walking upon the earth. Vayalech Moshe. Next phrase. Vayadabar et hadavarim ha'ele el kol Yisrael. And as he walked, he spoke. He talked. He opened and used his vocal cords and his lips and his tongue to form words that he had thought in the capacities of thought. He spoke all these things, all these words, devarim, these power-packed, more than the sum of the parts, words that have a prophetic impact and make the heart stir. He spoke these things in the ears of all Israel. And he said to them, I am 120 years old this day. When we've known Moshe for 120 years by reading the Torah. We were there when he was born. We were there when he was young and put into a basket. We were there whenever he was raised in Egyptian halls. We were there for his life. We were there when he was banished into Yitro's world of the Midianites and spent 40 years in the backside of the desert. We were there when he was called at the burning bush and came back to. And we were there during all the conversations he had, first with the Holy One and then with Aaron, and then with the elders, and then with Pharaoh. And we saw that. We've seen everything happen since. We have known Moshe, right? Haven't we? He said, I'm 120 years old this day. I can no more go out and come in. Lo achal od latzet velavo. This is the day. This is it. This is the day for me. And so he's going to start talking about the fact that he's 120 years old. This is the last day of his life. What would you do? How would you live if you were dying? How you followed Moshe's example? First of all, the first thing you would do is the words that you would speak would be devarim. You would want that to happen, right? You don't want to speak idle words like Yeshua talked about. You don't want to speak politics. You don't want to speak old grudges or old wounds or old scars. What you would want to do is leave behind powerful force of words. May it be so for all of us as we prepare. Prepare against that day by storing up and meditating on and beginning to speak to our loved ones and to all those in whom we're given sphere of influence. Speak devarim. The next thing he's going to do is he's going to talk to them about the year and about the time to come. He's going to talk to them about the Hakahel, the various different things like that. So I just want you to get a picture of that. Vayalech is going to have his final Devarim download. He's going to go out and speak more Devarim, and then we'll see how they all flow out. He's going to pass the baton to Yehoshua. He's going to know that this is his last day, and that Bnei Israel needs to understand they have a new leader and a new spokesman for the Creator of the universe. Yehoshua needs to know his time has come and arrived. These things, Moshe has invested much in Yehoshua at some personal cost to him. Now the issue of, have you looked around you lately? Before you go to your Yom Kippur appearance before the throne, rehearsing your own death and appearance before the judgment seat, will you be able to answer, who have you left what I have entrusted to you with, to care for. Have you thought about that? And think about it now. And Moshe is going to then deliver the scroll of the Torah. What a moment. When he took the scroll he had been so diligently writing, recording as a journal, as it were, all the things the Creator had been teaching him and speaking to him in person, third person, first person, and now all the things that he had written by virtue of the history of the 40 years that have taken place, with the miracles that have taken place and the generations that have changed. All these stories, all this wisdom, all this stored knowledge that is eternal and has now come into Moshe's mind, he has to write it down. And then the last jot, or the last tittle, the last yod, the last mark on the scroll, and he took it and he handed it to the priest. He wrote another one for the elders. What an amazing moment when he entrusted the most precious thing he had to them. His rod was not his most precious possession. It was for a while, but now what's the most precious thing that he possessed and the thing he had passed on was not his rod. It was the scrolls. I hope you love the scrolls. I hope the scrolls are life to you. I hope the scrolls become so much of a part of your life and your testimony. Okay, so that's where he did. And then you're going to have the mitzvah of Hakahal. So make sure that the scrolls are not forgotten every 7 years. And then, of course, we've taken that to mean every week because we have to get it done out there somewhere. And there's no king to read to us and no temple in Jerusalem to read it from. So, God, well, and then he's going to have this last encounter with the Creator of the universe. He's going to record it for us. The words are actually going to be quoted. We're going to see all this take place. And in the first of it, the Holy One's going to say, Hin karavu. Here approaches the day of your death. And then Moshe and Yehoshua are going to share the final download, the final discussions with the Creator of the universe. And then Moshe will do some things. He'll teach Israel a song. And I want to read to you the final prophetic download, the final God encounter, the final divine visitation and its words. These are the things that Moshe's life will end with, basically. He will have more to say, but the Holy One will cease to speak to him prior to his death. And here is what he said. Verse 16. And the Holy One said to Moshe, oh, these are the last time he'll ever hear this voice in this world, and as a mortal. The Holy One said to Moshe, behold, Chen, you will rest with your fathers, and this people will rise and play the harlot with the gods of the foreigners of this land. The Holy One knew in advance. He's not going to be how can he be angry at something he knew was going to take place and he allowed to take place? He says, behold, you will rest with your fathers, and the people will rise up and play the harlot with the gods of the foreigners of the land, where they go to be among them. Ooh, where they go to be among them. There's an exile in the plans here. And they will forsake me and break my covenant which I have made with them. He knows in advance it's going to happen. I knew what I was getting into, you might say, when I called you. And then my anger will be roused against them in that day. But it's not the kind of anger a human being has, right? Because a human being is angry because he's surprised. He didn't know that was going to happen. It's so frightening and it's so upsetting. But the Holy One knows in advance, and he chose you anyway. So my anger will arise, whatever that looks like, in that day. And I will forsake them, or at least they'll think I do. And I will hide my face from them, or at least they'll feel like I do. And many will be devoured, and many evils and troubles will befall them. And then they will say in that day, have not all these evils come upon us because our God is not among us? There's going to be a great awakening. See, he's going to turn all these things around for good. As bad as it is, and we deserve worse, but as bad as it may be, he said, for all people, the people of Israel not worse than anybody else. They're just people. And in the flesh, they are people. And so he says, this is the way people are. They will love me for a while. They'll see my miracles. They'll respond to me for a while. But ultimately, each one will fail me. Now, I'm not going to let that end our relationship or my plan. So he goes on and says, they'll say in those days, have not these evils come upon us because our God is not among us? And then he says, I will surely hide my face in that day because of all the evil that they have done, in that they have turned to other gods. And now, therefore, the Holy One speaks to Moshe again, write down this song for yourselves. and teach it to the children of Israel, Bnei Israel. Put it in their mouths, that this song may be a witness for me against the children of Israel. When I have brought them to the land flowing with milk and honey, of which I swore to their fathers, and they have eaten and filled themselves and grown fat, then they will turn to other gods, and they will serve them, and they will provoke me, and they will break my covenant. But then it will be, when all these evils and troubles have come upon them, something's going to happen. And this song will testify against them as a witness, and it will not be forgotten. It will not be forgotten in the mouths of their descendants. For I know, Vayadati, I know the inclination of their behavior. He said this about mankind after the flood, even after he had redeemed Noah. He said, even yet all men's thoughts and hearts are only evil all the time. Now I said, I know their inclination. I know them, even before I brought them out of the land which I swore to give them. And therefore Moshe wrote this song that day and taught it to Bnei Israel. And he inaugurated Joshua the son of Nun and said, be strong and of good courage, for you will bring the children of Israel into the land that I swore to them, and I will be with you. And so it was, when Moshe had completed writing the words of this Torah in a book. When they were complete, Moshe instructed the Levites who bore the Ark of the Covenant of the Holy One, saying, take this book of the Torah, this Sefer Torah, and put it beside the Ark of the Covenant of the Holy One your God, that it may be there as a witness for or unto you. For I know your rebellion and your stiff neck. If today, while I am yet alive with you, you've been rebellious against the Holy One, how much more so after my death? Gather to me, Moshe said, all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words in their hearing. He's going to use Devarim. I may speak these words in their hearing and call heaven and earth to witness against them or for them. For I know that after my death you will become utterly corrupt and turn aside from the way which I have commanded you, and evil will befall you in the latter days because you do evil, to provoke him to anger through the works of your hands. Now, we have this problem, we say. That wasn't the way we wanted this Torah to end. But let me assure you, that is not the way it's going to end. That is a part of the necessary process of having Israel dispersed like seed throughout all the nations, and having one final call to harvest, returning Bnei Israel after they have come to their senses, as all human beings must do. And all come to our senses, and now they will come and they will be brought back to their land, and they will now sing that song as a song of triumph, not as a song of disgrace. Blessings to you, beloved, as you get ready to prepare for your appearance before the throne, the judgment seat of the Holy One, as you begin to consider and contemplate and embrace your own mortality and, of course, the immortality that will come after it. May these thoughts that Moshe has left with us cause you to be reverent and full of awe and wonder and humble. There's no place for arrogance. There's no place for pride. There's no place to be cavalier. This is our time to get real, to get right, to come to the Holy One and let him begin to heal us and give us strength for the coming times to come. Shabbat Shalom. We'll see you next week. Amen.